For the photo assignment, the first technique we're going to go over is masking. And for this, what I asked you to do, I want you to just mask the cereal bowl, which is a pretty simple shape, but I'm going to show you a couple tricks of the trade here, and we'll show you how to go about setting up your assignment. What you should do, though, is download the stock images that you can find on Canvas. They're high res. It's a zipped file. You should be able to double click on it and unzip it, and then you'll have access to these high res files. What I would do before you get started, if you want to create a folder on your desktop, or if you have a folder with all your schoolwork in it, go ahead and use that. And what I'm going to have you do is, for each of these, you're going to be saving the file two different ways. So I'm going to create a new folder up here. And this is going to be my Photoshop layered file. I'm just going to call it PSD for Photoshop document. These are going to be all my master images. After I do all these techniques, I want to make sure I keep a layered version of those. So again, working in commercial design, you're going to have clients come and ask you to make changes. And you always want to make sure you kind of keep a master file so you don't have to start over from scratch. You can just go to your layered file, make whatever revisions the client's asking for. But I also want you to, you're also going to have to save all these in a second format. And these are going to be the files, the flattened TIFF, CMYK files that are going to go into your document you're going to send me. So I'm going to go ahead and make another new folder. And this I'm just going to call TIFFs. So we'll come back to this as we go to save these files. So the first one I asked you to do is to take this shot of, this shot of the cereal bowl, and we're going to go ahead and mask it out. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go ahead and open Photoshop. I think I have it open already here. So I'm working on a tablet, and it's a little touchy today for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and open, and I'll go find this in my folders here under week 2, and let's see here, I should have my photo assets. So let's find that cereal bowl. There it is. So I'm going to go ahead and open it, and I get the beach ball, and there you have this beautiful cereal bowl. So what I'm going to have you do is just mask out the bowl itself. You don't need to worry about the milk or the spoon over here. Now here's the thing, when you are masking things out, what you want to do, there's several techniques for masking things out, and the best tool to use when you have something that has a hard edge, like the cereal bowl here does, is to use the pen tool, because the pen tool is going to be able to give you really crisp edges. So I'm going to go ahead and select the pen tool over here. It's about 2/4 of the way down in my toolbar over here, and you can start anywhere you want. You can zoom in as tight as you want, wherever you want to start. Now here's the thing, with the pen tool you get the icon of the pen. For more precision, if you want to hit your caps lock key, what that will do is take away the icon and just give you a little target, which might be a little easier to do. Now one thing too about these kind of more organic circular or roundish shapes here is, in order to make your mask not lumpy, you want to try and do this in as few points as possible. So if you can go longer distances, I'll show you what I mean here. Now as I start, what I'm going to do, and keep in mind too, you don't have to get this on the first try. The great thing about masks is we can always go back and fix any mistakes or change anything we need to. What I always do, and this is one of the techniques I'm going to show you, instead of like trying to find the exact edge on this bowl, what I'm going to do is kind of try and aim like 1 or 2 pixels inside the edge. And I'll explain why I'm doing that once I have everything selected here. So I'm going to come up here, and again, you want to try and do this with as few points as possible. So I'm clicking and dragging and kind of lining that line up. And I'm going around here again. I'm aiming 1 or 2 pixels in, and I'm just going and trying to get the curve. If you don't get it exactly, don't freak out. We can go back and adjust it later. So I'm clicking and dragging, again, slightly inside. Now, the way photography works, as things go further away from the camera, they're going to start getting a little blurrier. So you're going to have to use your best judgment in picking up the edge of the bowl here. And we're coming around the edge. And you can see it's a little off over here. Don't worry, I can come back and fix it later. But that's not going to give me the curve I want. I'm going to hit Command Z and start right about here. And I'm going to slowly go around. Now as we come around, and we're, again, the same thing. Probably tried to do too much with one curve here. As I go around the photo, as you can see with the photo, as we get to the front edge, you're closer to the camera, so the edges are getting much more defined again. And we're going to come around here. Probably start it right about here. So here's the thing too, this comes with practice. I've been doing this a long time, so I can do this pretty quickly. And don't freak out if it takes you longer to do, because I know all of you are really starting fresh here. A lot of you have probably not used Photoshop all that much. And I'm going to come around here. You can see it's pretty off, so I'll start here. And I should be coming up on my original point here, pretty close. And when you do that, you want to close your loop here. So I've made it all the way around the cereal bowl, but here's the thing. Oops, sorry. This is not a selection, and the reason I know that is because I see a solid line here. I'm not seeing the typical moving dotted line that you see when something's selected in Photoshop. And that's because what I have here is not a selection. It's what we call a work path. So I need to turn it into a selection. So here's what I'm going to do. When you open Photoshop, you should have these three palettes kind of nested together, and we're going to be using all of them in this Photoshop assignment. If you don't see these, what you can do is come up here and adjust your workspace. And I didn't talk about this at the beginning, but Photoshop has several different workspaces preloaded in here. If you're working for something that's web-based, or you're working with photography or painting, motion graphics, 3D, for this assignment you're going to want to use Essentials. And if you don't see the palette set up the same way I have them here, you can always come down here, either select Essentials, or you can go ahead and reset Essentials, and that should give you the same palettes that you see here with me. So anyhow, back to this, what I have here is referred to as a work path. If you go ahead here and open the Paths panel, you can see down here, it's a little preview image of my selection that I've made. And you can see it says Work Path. So what I want to do is turn this from a work path into a selection. And the way you do that, down here at the bottom, you're going to see several icons in here. And if you hover over any of them for a minute, it should tell you what they do. But you want to go for the third one, which is a little circle of dotted lines. And the minute you click on that, you can see it has now turned my solid work path line into a selection line. So what we're going to do is use this selection to make a mask. But before we do that, I want to show you one little trick here. And this is the reason why when I did the selection, I chose inside the edge by 1 or 2 pixels. And that's because if I have the selection and I just have a hard edge on it, and I put it on a background, it's going to start looking kind of like cardboard cutouts. It'll look like one of those pop-up storybooks where everything has a hard edge to it. And if you want this to look more realistic, what you want to do, and as I mentioned with the cereal bowl, as you go back further on the image, you notice the image blurs a little bit on the edges. So what's going to make this look more realistic is if we give a very slight blur to this edge. But here's the thing, before you do this, you went through all that work to create this path. What I would do is come up here under the select drop-down menu down here. What you can do is save this selection. So if you do have to go back, you don't have to do it again. So we can just say this is the bowl selection. Probably shouldn't have done it all caps, but I'm too lazy to go back and do it. All right, now that you've saved that and we have this selection saved, here's what I'm going to do. under the selection drop down menu where we just were, what I'm going to come down to modify, and I'm going to come down to the bottom here where it says feather. And what this allows you to do with whatever you've selected, it will soften that edge. And so if you select that, you'll get this box. And we're only going to blur it 1 pixel, just a little tiny bit. It's just enough to keep it looking like a photo and not like a pop-up storybook here. So I'm going to leave that at 1. You want to leave this unchecked, apply effect at the canvas bounds, because if you check that, what that's going to do is give you a little blurry edge on the edge of the of your canvas, whatever size you're working on. So leave that at 1. Go ahead and hit OK. And what I'm going to do is zoom out on here a little bit. Now over here we're going to go back to layers, and I'm on my the images on the background here. What we're going to do is use our selection to mask this out, and it's very simple. With the moving line of the selection back here, come down to the bottom of the layers panel, and the third icon over here is labeled layer mask, and if you click on that, it will automatically turn your selection into a mask. So the way this works in Photoshop, and you can see it over here, anything that's been painted out with black is masked, and you don't see it. Anything you see white is what's going to be visible. If you ever want to look closely on your layer mask and double check it, if you hold the Option key down and click on it, there you can see what the mask looks like. Everything that's visible is white. Everything that we're hiding is black. To get back to your image, you just need to click on it over here. And what we're going to do, this is where you should, well, before we do this, let's make a little trip around the edge here and see if my mask was a little bit off. You can see I got a little darkness here. Let's see if anything's really bad on here. Nothing too bad. If I wanted to fine-tune this, and here's the thing, remember, the background isn't gone. It is still there. You can turn off the mask to view it if you hold the Shift key down and click on it. You can see the rest of the photo is still there. It didn't go anywhere. We're just hiding it. So if you wanted to, you could come in here and clean this up a little bit. You could use the pen tool and select that off, or you could use a brush and clean it off. Just in the effort of time here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and leave this the way it is. So we've got our mask selected. What you can do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. All right. I'm going to leave the stock number on here just because. I'll show you why. Let's see. Let me find my... Let's see where I'm at here. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Let's see, week 2. I'm going to go back here. For some reason, there's my photo assets. I don't know what's not showing me this. All right, anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and save this. I want to find my... there we go. That's what I was looking for. You got to forgive me. I just updated my operating system, and I've got to be honest with you, I'm not really digging this new look for everything. All right, here's the Photoshop document file I saved, and I'm going to go ahead and save this as my Photoshop document. I'm going to leave the iStock number on it, and I'll show you why in a minute here. And now we want to go ahead and create the file that you're going to put into a document for me. So once you have this masked off, what I'm going to do is come over here and create a new canvas. This is going to be, and I want you to do this for each of them, 6 inches by 9 inches. When we're working for photography, especially for packaging, you want to use that as leave this at high resolution, 300 dpi or pixels per inch. Go ahead and hit create. So here's the canvas that I've created. And then I have a tab folder here with my masked image. Here's what I'm going to do just to make it easier. Here's my masked image. If you just click on this and drag it off, now it's not nested together with my other canvas back here. And once you've done that, it makes it really easy. Oh, let me go back to it. If I come over here, I've got my cereal bowl. The image is kind of floating out here. Come over to the layer here and just drag it onto my back image there. And now you have your cereal bowl. Now, if you want to, I'm just asking you to put this into a 6x9 canvas on here. Here's a good example of really cropping in on this to see more of the detail. I'm going to leave it up to you, whatever size you want to do this. You can grab any of these corners. You can put it and crop it off the edges. I wouldn't go so small that we can't see all the detail in there. Although you might. Or maybe you want to crop it off both edges. We can do that as well. So when you get it sized and placed where you want it, I'm just going to hit the return key to set that in. I'm going to leave it up to you. If you want to, you could put color back here. So I'm just going to pick a nice morning yellowish orange color to put back there. I clicked on the color picker here. And then what you can do is just click on the background, come up here under edit, and I'm going to fill. And it's going to ask you what you want to fill it with. You can do black, gray, white, or you can do the foreground color, which is the color that's on top, which is yellow. Or I could do background color, but that's white, and that's what I already have. So I'm going to do foreground color and hit OK. Now I've got a nice yellow background. Now here's where you're going to save the files for yourself, and you're going to save the files for me. You want to save a working file for yourself. So come up here under File, do Save As. I'm going to go ahead and put it in my PSD file. But here's where you can rename it. So you can call this cereal bowl if you want to, or masking. Me with my caps lock. Let's see. And spelling. All right, let's try that again. We'll just call this masking because that's what this technique is. You want to make sure you're leaving it in the Photoshop format, the .psd format. That will include all your layers. So let's say your client comes back and says, I hate the yellow, change the color. Or I want to see the bowl larger. If you save this layered file, you can just go back, open it up, and make those minor changes. If you haven't saved that, you may have to start all over from scratch, and that can save you a huge amount of time. So go ahead and save that. Then what you're going to do, and this is going to be the image that you put in the file that you send to me. You're going to flatten this. You're going to change the color space in it. All of these images I've given you are in the RGB color space. You can always look up here on the tab with the name of the file. It will either tell you if it's RGB or CMYK or black and white. You'll always be able to see up there. So we're going to flatten this. We're going to turn it into a CMYK image, and then we're going to save it in the TIFF format. So first off, to flatten it, come over here to your layers panel, come up to the little hamburger menu in the upper right hand corner, and down near the bottom you'll see flatten. So you're going to go ahead and do that. Now you no longer have layers. Now the cereal bowl is married to the yellow background. If you try and lift it off, you're not going to be able to do it. So we've flattened it. Let's change the color space. To do that, you want to come up here under Image, the Image drop-down menu. First slot here, it says Mode, and you can see it's in the RGB color space. We're going to change that into the CMYK color space. Now, back in the day when you made this change, you could really see a noticeable shift in the colors here. The technology has gotten to the point where you really, if there is a shift, it's pretty minor. So keep an eye on the image as I select this. And it'll ask you, God, I hate this new interface. Okay. And it shifted it, and you didn't see any change. And how do I know it's in the CMYK color space? look up here at the top, and now instead of RGB it says CMYK. So now that you've done that, we're going to save this again. Now we're not going to save this in the PSD file. We're going to go back and select the TIFFs file here. And make sure when you do this, you don't leave it in Photoshop. We're going to come down here and change the format to TIFF. Go ahead and hit save. When you get this image or this dialog box, make sure you have none selected for image compression. You can go ahead and leave this as the default. If you're on a PC, go ahead and shift this. If you're on a Mac, you can go ahead and shift it there. So make sure you select the right operating system and then go ahead and save. Hit OK. And now you've finished the first image.